That woman literally just locked us in here.
After living here for 2.5 years, I can't think of a more fitting Taiwanese sentiment or phrase than, there's no reason for it, it's just our policy. Hey there, we're Justin and Leah.
And we have a question for you. When was the last time you did something for the first time?
When living in another country, it's a good idea, if you want to be a good guest, that you follow the policies and the laws of that country. And we try to the best of our ability. I mean, we can't actually fully assimilate and become Taiwanese.
But we can be good guests. And we've done this when we've lived in South Korea, Vietnam, and here. And ways that we've done that is by asking questions, being aware of cultural norms, researching what it looks like to live in another country before we arrive as foreigners, because one of the best ways to assimilate or navigate a new country is being aware of your cultural biases and checking them at the door.
In addition to learning about the culture, you're going to have to follow the laws, that's kind of a given, and you're going to need to adhere to the policies that the country puts forth as well, which can be challenging because sometimes policies just don't make sense. In Taiwan, you have a lot of policies that I'm struggling with. Most recently, a policy that I ran into that really boggled my mind was at Costco. And you might think, what kind of policy could trouble you at Costco? Well, let me tell you. I was at the food court and I wanted some ice cream. And for some reason, Costco thought it was a good idea to take away the ice cream and add an ice cream sundae instead, which is simply ice cream with strawberry syrup and dehydrated strawberries poured on top of it. And that's not what I wanted. I just wanted ice cream. So I asked the guy at the counter, hey, can I get just the ice cream? And he goes, no. I'm thinking, what? He goes, no, just you have to get this. It's our policy. I'm like, what do you mean it's your policy? You can't give me less of an item for the same price and then me be okay with it? He goes, let me ask my boss. So he asked his boss, who said, no, it's our policy. And he turned around and said, it's our policy. We can't give you the ice cream unless we pour on the syrup. What kind of policy is that? I don't get it.
That's the example that you're starting this video out with? That's the policy that you're going to talk about?
That's the most recent issue that I've come across.
But we've come across so many more serious issues than strawberry
sundae. I just wanted ice cream. Go ahead, Leah. Tell us about more policy issues you have.
I don't have issues, I have questions. Policies are made to benefit the people. But what we are not finding is the consistency in policy. I wire money home the same day every month, the same amount every month, even the same time. I go to the post office to wire money home at the same time. But the policy is never consistent. Sometimes I need my passport, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I have to sign paperwork for the IRS to know how much money I'm wiring home. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I need my CHOP, sometimes I don't. And it is so inconsistent that I just bring everything because nothing is ever done the same way. And when I ask questions, well, last time they didn't need it, but this time they do, oh, it's our policy. Or if they don't need it, it's our policy.
There's no reason for it. It's just our policy. There's even more examples that we can share with you, like our lease.
We signed a lease. The policy said there was no smoking, but there was a smoker in the building that smoked so much the smoke was actually coming underneath the door into our apartment. We broke the lease because it was causing healthcare issues, but we never got our money back because the policy of no smoking was not enforced.
It's not a legal issue.
It was just a suggestion. That's what they told us.
Right, and therefore we went to mediation where we said, well, it's a policy, but we can't enforce the policy. What's the point of having a policy and allowing us to sign away a year agreement on a place that you guarantee that is smoke-free if you can't enforce the people who break the policy to move out? That policy doesn't make sense. This is the plaque that popped into my mind. You see the theme here, right? So where we really started to see this idea that policy is more important than people in Taiwan is when I went to the hospital after being hit by a taxi.
We just need you to hang in there and follow along with this story. There's so many things that are inconsistent that we have questions about.
I get hit by a taxi, I'm taken into the ER, they're like, oh no, you have broken clavicle, a broken scapula, and then the surgeon rolls over and says, hey, this happens quite often in Taiwan. I'm gonna fix you up tonight because you really need to get all those bones put back in place before they cause other problems. And I'm like, great, let's do it. And then the nurse comes over and says, bad news, you have COVID. I'm like, what do you mean I have COVID? I don't have COVID, I feel great, I feel fine. They're like, you have COVID, you need to quarantine. I was like, hold up. Did you give me a PCR test? No, rapid antigen. Rapid antigen, that's not good enough for me. I want a PCR test. Like, well, in the meantime, you and your wife now have to be confined away from everyone else. And I'm like, okay, that's reasonable policy.
Yeah, it is.
We've always agreed with how Taiwan has managed the pandemic. We have always agreed with the policy, and we've even kind of poked fun at some of the Westerners that have complained about landing here with COVID and then being put in a hospital. Well, guess what? That was the policy. You knew it flying in, and you took the risk, and you got put in a hospital. Wah, poor little Westerner, get over yourself. But now we're in a situation that I think is similar, but yet different enough because I have bone fractures that are starting to poke through my skin that need to be tended to and taken care of, and we're being pushed aside into a quarantine facility. Now, I want you to take a moment to look at this quarantine facility. I know this is a triage quarantine facility, but I don't think I'm getting top-notch care in a facility that looks like this. I understand the policy. The policy is to move the person out of Gen Pop and put them in isolation. Fine, do that. But I would have rather been outside in a parking lot than to be put into a room in those conditions. Again, following policy over patient care, in my opinion.
I think this is where our first question comes in. If anyone from Taiwan is watching this video and this happened to your family member, would you be okay with having your family in a room like this? Or is it more important that you are following the policy of removing yourself, from being a possible hazard to other people that are in the ER? Or would there have been concerns that you are required to spend the next 5 days in this room?
So we spent about 30 minutes in this room until someone pulled Leah aside and said, you're gonna have to quarantine properly in a room upstairs for 5 days because he's presenting positive. And Leah's like, can we see the results? I'm like, oh, it's not our policy to show you the PCR results. It's not your policy to show us the PCR results. He's going to have to stay, and since you're exposed, you're gonna have to stay as well. There's not gonna be anyone coming in and out of your room.
Right.
You're gonna be sealed off. You can't have any food delivery. No food's gonna be brought in, and you guys need to go now. We have no supplies. If you're not providing us with any food, how is it that we're gonna survive for 5 days with no food? This doesn't make any sense.
And water. Remember, they were like, even bring your own water.
So they said, oh, Leah can leave. I'm like, wait, why isn't she being quarantined? In fact, have you even been tested at this point?
No, I have not.
She's not been tested, but she's been exposed to me. She's been locked in this triage quarantine room with me, but now she's allowed to go back out into the world to gather supplies.
And I did ask that. If I'm leaving and this is quarantine, there's a possibility that I'm going to have to expose myself to someone to go to the market to grab food and to go home.
Leah leaves, and Leah gets the supplies, comes back, and then they build this makeshift, I guess this is some kind of tent to keep me from contaminating everyone. And look, no hospital wants to have to deal with a quarantine patient, and we get that. It doesn't make anyone's job easier, it makes their job harder, and these people are just doing their job. We're gonna say that right now. Everyone is just doing their job and listening to whatever the bosses are telling them and following the policy as they've been told to do. It's the policy we have an issue with, not the people implementing it. So we go up to the room, and we're locked in, and they kind of did seal us up, right? But I'm beginning to feel more and more pain because I've had a brace put on me that's supposed to hold my shoulders back and try to hold these multiple fractures in place, and I'm just in intense pain. An attending physician checks on us, and I say, hey, can I get the surgery? And they said, no, you're in quarantine. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Then we talk to a nurse, and she says, oh, the surgeon isn't willing to do the surgery. That's the same surgeon that just told me he's ready to do it, and we need to do it now. I want to talk to the surgeon. And we're talking to the surgeon, he says, oh no, I can't do the surgery because it's the hospital's policy. There's a conflict. Which policy is it? Is the policy the discretion of the surgeon, or is the policy don't let anyone in the surgical field? We don't know what the answer is. I asked the attending physician, can I get another PCR test tomorrow? And he says, no, it's against our policy to let you have a second PCR test.
Well, to be clear, it's against the policy because they can only pay for one.
We said we'll pay for it out of pocket. And he's like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Give us the PCR test. If a PCR test is a qualifier to put me into quarantine, a PCR test should be a qualifier to take me out of quarantine. The attending doctor says, okay, you know what? Let's do that. Next day rolls around and said, hey, ready for that PCR test? Yeah, policy says we can't give you one. We said we pay for it. No, it's just against the policy. Ding, 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 ding. This. I'm talking to the attending, telling them that I'm in lots of pain. We'll increase your pain meds. Okay, you have money to spend on pain meds, but not money to spend on a second PCR
Correction.
test.
Taxpayers have money to spend on pain meds.
Right. We understand that the longer that I am in quarantine, the more money that's coming out of the NHI system. And all taxpayers contribute to that. So I feel like we're wasting other people's money if we're not actually positive. I'm in lots of pain. I want to get the surgery. They say I can't have the surgery until I'm finished with quarantine. And I'm like, but what if I test positive at the end of quarantine? And they're like, no, it doesn't matter because it's been 5 days. Thinking, wait a minute. So if you're saying that I still test positive at the end of quarantine, I can get surgery because it's been 5 days? Yeah, that's our policy. Oh, Taiwan, I don't understand. Please help me understand how this is making sense.
I'm trying to make the best out of this situation because I understand that there is a policy that has to be followed. Here are things that I am looking at. During the passing of the days, the bones are starting to tint. They are starting to come through the skin. With both of our mothers being nurses, we know that once that bone breaks, that's serious. So I am sending videotapes to the head nurse and asking this to be given to the head doctor saying, hey, the bone is starting to tint. To which the reply is, we can't do anything, it's our policy. What happens if someone comes in and they had a heart attack and they tested positive for COVID and they needed surgery? What do you do?
Put them in a 5-day quarantine.
They put them in a 5-day quarantine.
Because
They're like, it's the policy. And I'm like, are you?
Fifth day rolls around and we are finally free of our quarantine, whether we're positive or not. They come in and give Leah a test, and guess what? Her rapid antigen test says she is COVID free. Did they test me again? Nope, didn't need to because I've been in there for 5 days and that's all that matters because that's all the policy states. So we're ready to leave the room and the woman's like, oh no, wait, but we're ready to go outside. She wouldn't let us go. She literally ran to the door as I walked towards it and she slams the door and locks us in.
I still don't know why that happened.
She
just told us we couldn't leave. I don't know what it was.
Let's just say I made it known that I was leaving that room, whether they unlocked the door or not. So once they finally opened the door, we gathered our stuff and we went to another floor. I tried to go outside to get some sunshine on my face because we haven't had any daylight for days. I haven't had any vitamin D. They didn't want me to leave. A woman literally tried to block the elevator, not letting me leave, said I couldn't go outside. I asked, is my quarantine over? Yes. Why can't I go outside?
I don't know what that policy was. So Justin is giving you the abridged version. I'm trying to understand. So this is where asking questions comes in. The questions that we were asking, to me, seemed like they were yes or no. Can you tell us if this is yes or no? Do I need to sign in first? Yes or no? Do we need to go to the room first? Yes or no? Is there paperwork that Justin needs to sign first? Yes or no?
He just can't go outside.
It's our policy. You just can't go outside. You just can't.
Needless to say, I went outside.
Yes, you did. There was carnage everywhere. You were really, really elevated, but I understood why you were elevated.
I don't hold any animosity towards anyone that was doing their job because everyone's got a boss who has a boss who has a boss who has a boss. And we've been in Taiwan to know long enough that shit rolls downhill. Those people were covered in it at that point, and they just wanted to not get in any trouble. But no one could really understand what the policy was. So I'm wondering, how can you even get in trouble if no one can really explain what the policy is? So you're just afraid to do something wrong and you're doing your job, and I get that.
Again, I ask questions when I'm in a different country so that I can understand and be a better guest in this country. But because we're not getting the answers that we need, and because people are avoiding even helping us understand so that we can work better together, my question now becomes, who exactly is the policy for?
Right.
The fact that people are blindly following policy without knowing what it is and being able to explain so that we have a better understanding, not to criticize it. It makes me think that policies they're just followed blindly with no critical thinking for extenuating circumstances. It's more of a CYA.
If you don't know what CYA is, that's cover your ass.
Meaning, I don't have to think about trying to explain to you, it's just our policy.
It's our policy, and I can't get in trouble because I told you it's our policy.
Yep, that's
and I'm
it.
following policy. That's what my boss told me, that's what their boss told them. So it's CYA, cover your ass.
So I'm wondering, is it common practice that no one questions the policy? Are we the problem for wanting that clarification?
Some people question it. Think of how many times we've had people pull us aside and say, I know it's dumb. I mean, the surgeon even said...
Yeah, the surgeon was like, yes!
The surgeon was like, hey, you know, if you'd gone to a different hospital, that hospital's policy would have allowed for you to have the surgery. He did it. The attending agreed to getting me out of quarantine earlier if I tested negative with the second PCR test. He says, that's a great idea. He agreed with us. I mean, even the kid at Costco says, I know how easy this is. I know it doesn't make sense, but it's our policy. I can't give you ice cream without the strawberry sundae mix. I'm so sorry. And he was very, very frustrated. He probably got fired because of me.
Good job.
Aww. But I mean, there are people who question it. It's too often that we get pulled aside and someone will say, I know it doesn't make any sense, but we've got to follow policy. I know that's dumb, but we have to follow policy. I think our question for you, the Taiwanese viewers, what do you do when you want to challenge policy? Are you allowed to culturally? Is
that space created for you to be able to voice concerns or questions?
Or do you just bite your tongue, bear through the policy, and I don't know, complain to friends and family at home? Because if you can tell us, then we can better manage ourselves whenever we struggle with policy that just doesn't make sense. Whenever the policy seems more important than the people it's supposed to be protecting, we want to do better, but we need your help to do better. So please tell us. This is where you flood the comment box and let us know what we can do differently. How do you handle it? And then we can get back to loving Taiwan the way that we do, because, I mean, we've been here for 2.5 years. We're not seeming to go anywhere anytime soon. So Taiwan, we love you, but we want some answers.
On a lighter note, if you want to see a video where we didn't have to follow any policy and procedures and we were having a great time, you should check out this video.
There's no reason for it. It's just our policy.